Missouri Senator Josh Hawley introduced a bill this week that would prevent members of Congress from trading in individual stocks. This move drew obvious outrage from our oligarchic elite on Capitol Hill. Nancy Pelosi was stopped for comments as she boarded her private jet and said, quote, "People don't realize that government officials are just like them. We aren't out of touch. I mean, my servants put me in my pants one leg at a time," end quote. Chuck Schumer was likewise inflamed. In a fiery tirade, he let the media know, quote, "Being a senator is expensive. I have to maintain 2 luxurious homes that none of my constituents could ever hope to afford. And have you ever seen a repair bill for a Rolls Royce? These mechanics will rob you blind if you don't have your lawyers involved, and those legal fees add up," end quote. I, for one, don't mind that congressmen make decent money. It only bothers me when it's at the expense of the rest of us 350 million Americans. I'm Tyler Chrestman. Welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I have two topics that we're going to get into today. We are going to be talking about stock trading in Congress. That's going to be the big one, obviously, from the intro. It's kind of a fun topic. And then we are going to talk about RFK trying to ban Snap users from buying sugary drinks. But first, we have two things to announce. One, look, Winnie is back. She hasn't made an appearance in so long. Winnie, say hi to your fans. Okay, a little purr action. Okay, and secondly, we got to go over our favorite comment from last week. My favorite comment from last week comes from my friend Brad, who says, quote, "Definitely hope cancel culture is out. All the outrage about everything someone doesn't like is exhausting," end quote. Brad, as you are very, very well aware, if you watched last week's video, I 100% agree, and I'm right there with you. I think that cancel culture as a whole is on its way out. I think the pendulum is swinging back, and hopefully we wind up somewhere in the middle. Because it is important that you understand that, not you, Brad, but in general, okay, Winnie, all right. Sit down or go away. Quit, you're bumping the mic. It is important that we understand one thing, and that one thing is that it's important that we have some things that are that we can get canceled for, would be a good way to say it. And what I mean by that is we don't want to normalize everything. We don't want to say all opinions are valid. We don't want to say that everything deserves discussion and dissection and merit and that you can say whatever you want without consequence. That's never what anyone should advocate for. When we talk about it, the phrase that we use is the Overton window. And the Overton window is this idea that, or basically what it means is it's the range of topics that are acceptable in public discourse. So when we say we want to keep the Overton window wide, what we mean is we want to be able to talk about things. So you want to have less things be taboo, which means that they're at least open for discussion. You can't bring up something and say, oh, well, we got to shun this person from society because they believe in baseline mainstream Republican policy, for example, which is what Democrats do. They want to pretend that you can't have a discussion about, or you can't be anti-Black Lives Matter, or you can have different opinions about the trans issue, or you can't have any differing opinions because otherwise you're a bigot or a racist or whatever the case they want to call you. And so we want to keep that wide because it's important to be able to have discussions. That doesn't mean that you leave it so wide that you normalize Nazis, for example. And so that's all we've been discussing on the classic libertarian side or the more classically liberal side is this idea that free speech is important, and free speech is being able to discuss ideas. And that's kind of where we're at. And so we want is it to swing back to a more rational center where we're not normalizing everything. We don't want every idea to be treated as serious. Some ideas can be dismissed out of hand. I'm not going to sit there and have a calm discussion with someone who just says they don't believe in the Holocaust, for example. It's not worth my time. I have nothing to discuss with you. I don't think that you are based in reality if you say that. But anyway, we're getting way off topic here. But my point is we want to wind up somewhere in the middle. So the pendulum is swinging back. We went too far. We tried to overcorrect and cancel everybody. And so we're going to swing back, and hopefully we wind up somewhere in the middle where we can have just good discussions about a broad range of topics and do so respectfully with the other people. That's all I've ever wanted from people on the left, people on the right. Right now, the problem with free speech is on the left. In the past, it's been on the right. So we kind of go back and forth. We want to go back to the middle where we can just have good discussion. Anyway, thanks, Brad, for the comment, and thank you for watching. Okay, now on to topic one, stocks in Congress. This is a topic that I think I haven't actually seen polling on it. I'm sure it's out there somewhere. I didn't look because I don't care, because I'm going to use my intuition here, and I'm going to say something based on no data, but yet if you ask me to make a large bet, I'm going to bet I'm right, which is just that this is something Americans want. Americans don't like the idea of the government, our government officials, making money that they themselves don't have access to. And what I mean by that is that if you're a government employee, you're working for the taxpayer. So this is something that people in Congress, I think that we should treat them with a certain level of respect, but at a certain point, they have to remember that they work for the American people. They are paid by tax dollars. I pay taxes. I'm your boss. That's kind of the way it works. It's kind of the way that it works with the president. I think everyone should treat the president with some level of respect, especially in person, right? We can criticize them. We can make fun of them. We can do all these things. I don't think the president is above reproach. But for example, if you meet him in person, you should be respectful. Like that, he's the president. Right? You should treat people in person, especially with respect. And even if they're public officials you don't like, there's a certain level of discourse you want to have with people in general. But they do work for you on a certain level. And I think that there's this idea of corruption that people don't like in their government employees, that it wouldn't bother them. It doesn't bother you, for example, you go to the car wash and the guy who works, excuse me, my head is itchy. You go to the car wash and the owner, you find out, is embezzling money. You don't feel the same way about that guy. You might not, you say, oh, that's crazy. Like, I don't really like that, and that's bad, and you shouldn't do that. You don't feel the same way about the car wash owner that you do when it turns out that your congressman was embezzling money, or that your congressman was stealing money or misappropriated funds. There's something else about that gets you extra incised. You get extra angry. You're worked up about it. Something about that situation. Because they work for you. And because you have to have some level of trust in government for government to work. There has to be some baseline level of trust, and they're asking you to do that, right? Government is basically asking you to trust them. Hey, we're going to handle this. We're going to figure it out. We got your best in mind. We're doing everything for you and your benefit. So when they're lying to you and doing things in their benefit at your expense, it hurts deeply. It hurts in a way that it doesn't when the car wash guy is cheating you, or the mechanic is kind of like a little shady with you, or whatever it is. When someone in the regular world, it's not that it doesn't bother you. It's just that it feels different when it's your government employee. So there's this baseline level of distrust in government. Congress, for example, is at historic lows in public trust. This one, again, I don't have that number in front of me, but I remember hearing this numerous times, that when you poll people about their opinion about Congress in general, that they are at the lowest levels you've ever seen in their approval ratings. And it makes sense to me. So back in April of this year, Donald Trump said that he would sign a bill, if put before him, that would ban congressmen from individual stock trading. Donald Trump said he would sign it. So this sort of reinvigorated this conversation. Josh Hawley, my senator here in Missouri, he said that he was going to introduce a bill. He's been saying it. I guess he finally wrote one. He introduced it. And in the past, the reason why this is a big deal, in the past, there's been quite a bit of outrage about this, because back in 2008, congressmen made a lot of money off of the recession. In 2010, when there was a big healthcare debate in Congress, they did the same thing. Many people made a lot of money in Congress based on insider trading knowledge that they had about what was going to happen in the healthcare realm, because this was a big deal during Obama's presidency, when Obamacare was going to take over and all these different things. They were people who made money knowing inside information about this. And in 2012, to combat this, the Congress passed the Stock Act. Now, the Stock Act is a good idea. The Stock Act was passed, and basically it made insider trading laws applicable to members of Congress and their staff. So you say, hey, this is a good thing, because we have insider trading laws that apply to everyone else, and apparently they didn't apply to Congress, so let's just apply them to Congress. Hey, look, clap your hands, problem solved. Except not really. This act also required people to disclose any stock trading, of members of Congress, to disclose stock trading within 45 days of trades. Sounds good, not effective at all. It hasn't worked at all. There have been so many violations of this act in the last 13 years. It is just laughable. It's not enforced. It's a joke. And I don't like laws that aren't enforced in general. I don't like them ever. I think that they're a bad thing when you have laws that are selectively enforced or not enforced. They shouldn't be laws. So we have this law. It's not enforced. There have been so many violations. I have a couple here that are it's just ridiculous. So there's a Republican, Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania, whose wife made purchase of shares in a steel company one day after the congressman learned that the Trump administration was going to intervene to help save that steel business, and days before that information was made public, which then drove the stock price up. Okay, that's bad. That's bad. Mike Kelly, you did a bad thing. There's a Republican, Mark Wayne Mullen of Oklahoma, who disclosed hundreds of thousands of dollars in stocks up to 2 years after they occurred, violating the 45-day disclosure law that is passed. There have been 75 federal lawmakers who held stock in COVID-19 vaccines in the early weeks of the pandemic, 15 lawmakers who are on U.S. defense policy councils that also own stock with military contractors who surprisingly get contracts. And let's not forget the worst offender of all, Nancy Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi this is ridiculous. Nancy Pelosi, in 2024, her stock portfolio outperformed every major hedge fund. She has gained 54% over the course of last year. The average hedge fund was gaining 10%. The hedge funds, by the way, you're talking about the best and the brightest stock traders in the world, and some of the largest hedge funds in the world were getting 10% returns. A 10% return would be great. I would love a 10% return. Nancy Pelosi got a 54% return on her stocks over the course of the last year. Why is that the case? Why do you think that's the case? Do you think, and I'll tell you actually, hold on. Take a step back here. Let me tell you something here. First of all, I don't like what you're insinuating. You think Nancy Pelosi's corrupt? You think this is insider trading? You think this is bad? Nancy Pelosi is just a stock trading wizard, okay? She's just the best there ever has been. She can outperform Warren Buffett every day of the week with her eyes closed, okay? And I don't like that you're just saying, hey, the fact that she gained 54% over her portfolio in 1 year alone, how could that be the case when everyone else didn't? No one came close to that. Listen, she's just really good at her job. Her husband actually is really good at it. See, what he's doing is he's got his little charts open at the house during the day, and he's on the computer clicking buttons. You know, he's using Robinhood and E-Trade, and he's just going in there. He's just doing his thing because he's really good at his job. How dare you imply that Nancy Pelosi, who gained 54% returns last year, is doing anything crazy? That's just outrageous. And in fact, let me give you some financial advice. Right now, type in Nancy Pelosi stock tracker in Google and just buy the stocks that Nancy Pelosi buys. That actually is, I'm giving you real financial advice here. You should do this. It works really well. You could make a lot of money just buying what Nancy Pelosi buys. Just do that. That's my one financial. I don't give a lot of financial advice on the Chrestman Conversation. This is a free one for you. Nancy Pelosi stock tracker. Just buy those things, and I guarantee you will make money. So anyway, obviously, you should be able to tell. That was heavy sarcasm. Nancy Pelosi is obviously using insider trading to her advantage to make money. It's ridiculous. It's so blatantly obvious. I don't know how anyone can deny it. It just seems ridiculous. And the punishment, by the way, for violating the Stock Act, I know what you're saying. Hey, listen, if I'm in a corporation, I work for whoever, and I violate the law, I do insider trading, I go to jail. Okay, and that's a real thing that people do. Financial crimes, white-collar crime is real. People go to prison for this kind of stuff. I'm pretty sure, off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure that's why Martha Stewart went to jail. I don't know that, actually. I'm just kind of vaguely remembering this. Isn't that why Martha Stewart went to prison? Didn't she have some insider trading thing and then go to jail for that, like actual prison? So people go to jail for insider trading. What happens if you violate the Stock Act in Congress? Well, you're held to the same standards as everyone else, right? You have insider trading laws. No. The punishment is a $200 fine. So you're $200. You get a $200 penalty for insider trading where you make millions of dollars. That makes no sense to me whatsoever. Members of Congress, here's my solution, by the way. Okay, so I actually have a solution. So this Josh Hawley, he came through, and his idea is that people who go into the government, who want to work in government or Congress, they have to divest. They have to put their assets in a blind trust, or they have to just sell individual stocks, or they can buy into hedge funds or sort of group accounts, not individual stocks. This is kind of his solution, kind of the idea. By the way, Donald Trump was mad at Josh Hawley this week. Apparently he got told by some people, they've kind of made up at this point, but he got told that basically this was going to call on the president and vice president to follow this rule too, which is true. but it actually exempts the current sitting president when the law is passed. So it would exempt Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. And it would basically make the people who are president next time do all these different things. And Donald Trump was basically told by someone, hey, this is going to make you sell all your assets and blah, blah, blah. And Donald Trump attacked Josh Hawley, called him a second-rate senator. You're a second-tier senator, and, did all the normal Trump things where he attacks someone he doesn't like. I guess they made up because Josh Hawley explained that's actually not true. It explicitly exempts the current sitting president, which, by the way, is not a favor to Donald Trump. Most laws do that when it comes to the president. Most of them kind of do. When, for example, when you look at many of the amendments to the Constitution, they exempt the current administration. When there are laws about the president or anything like this, they tend to exempt the current administration just because that's kind of the way it works. You don't want to apply laws to people who are currently in office. It always applies to the next guy. That's just kind of the way it works. So it's not really a favor to Donald Trump. Just sort of the way these things work. Anyway, because it would make it really difficult for someone like Donald Trump in the middle of his presidency to also have to worry about doing all this business stuff, and it's silly. So the next guy would have to follow all these laws. Anyway, doesn't matter. So Josh Hawley's solution is that they just don't get to buy individual stocks. I actually don't share this, and I actually have a couple things here that some people aren't going to like. I don't mind. When I said in the intro, I know my intro pretty sarcastic, and I'm basically joking around, but I actually... the end of it, I do mean in a certain sense. I do not mind that members of Congress make money. It doesn't bother me. I don't care. I think we should pay them well. If you're a senator or a congressman, you want to pay them well, because I think if you pay them well, first of all, it disincentivizes the need for graft. I'm not saying there aren't going to be people who need more, and I understand we pay our congressmen well. But it is also true, I know I'm making fun of Chuck Schumer in the two luxurious homes comments, but it is true that a lot of these people do have to maintain two households. And a lot of these people have to do all these different things. And I think that that's not necessarily easy. And I think that you need some money for that. So I understand they make a lot of money. I don't mind that they make money. I don't mind that we pay them well. It doesn't really bother me. So my solution, I have one of two possibilities. One possibility, I think, is this. When you come into Congress, you have to declare all your assets. This is part of the thing already. I think already you have to declare what you're worth, what you do, all this stuff. I'm pretty sure that's a standard practice already. My solution is when you come in and you have to declare what you have. If you own individual stocks, if you own real estate, you own whatever it is, you get to keep it, okay? You can sell it at any point that you want. That's fine. But when you buy more stocks, when you buy into things, you either have to do one of two things. You have to buy into, and these are two separate solutions. The first solution is when you buy into things, you're only allowed to buy into funds. You can't buy into individual stocks. So, for example, I can't go with the steel company and say, I'm going to buy up this steel company knowing that they're going to make a deal. I have to buy into some mutual fund or hedge fund that's got assets and a bunch of things. So I can't just individually look at a stock and buy it and then the price goes up and I make a bunch of money. I just get to invest like everybody else in mutual funds, hedge funds, all these different things where I can still make money, because I don't think we should deprive people in Congress of their retirement accounts, for example. We're not going to force everyone to sell their 457s, and that doesn't make any sense. So we're not going to do that. We're not going to make them sell their 401k. So we just allow them to do what you do already, which is just you can invest in these big funds, but you can't really manipulate a big fund the way you can manipulate individual stocks. So that's one solution right there. That would be an easy one. And that's kind of what the Josh Hawley approach is, it's basically everyone needs to sell their individual stock. I'm saying you get to keep that. You can keep that. If I own stock in Coca-Cola, then I go into Congress, I shouldn't have to sell my Coca-Cola stock. I just say, hey, you can buy into other stocks that are mutual funds, and you can sell your Coca-Cola stock at any time, but you can't buy individual stocks for individual businesses that you have the potential to make money off of. I think that's a fair solution. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. My second solution is this. Shorten the window, narrow the window of public disclosure from 45 days to like 4 hours. Take all of it away. So instead of saying, you have to disclose within 45 days, make it like 4 days. Make it 2 days. And force every member of Congress, whenever they want to buy individual stocks, allow them to do that, and then just force them to disclose it publicly. And make it a hefty, hefty fine if they don't. No $2 fine. Say the forfeiture of the stock or the forfeiture of the price of the stock plus some gigantic penalty. Force people to comply with this. Not like, oh, I disclosed 2 years later, here's my $200 fine. No. Oh, I disclosed 2 years later, here's all the money that the stock made over the last 2 years, plus $50,000, whatever it is, some outrageous sum. Make them comply. And here's why that's not a bad idea. Because why is insider trading illegal? Ask yourself this question. It's an easy question. You know, it's kind of, the answer is in the title of the crime itself. Why is insider trading illegal? Insider trading is illegal because on the inside, we have a secret. You have information. I have information. The public doesn't have information. And then we make money off that information because we have access to things that they don't. So we can manipulate prices. We can get in on things early. We can sell early. We can do all these things to protect our investment at the expense of other people. It actually is not about us. It's about the fact that other people are deprived of this information, and we, you and I, in our insider trading deal, we can make money off of them or not lose money because we have access to the information. So it's illegal because the playing field is not level. You're cheating. And when you cheat, you're violating the rules of the game, and therefore your wins are null and void, right? It doesn't count because that's kind of what insider trading is. It's this idea that you're not playing fair, and because you work for a company or you heard something or whatever the case may be, you're able to cheat the system. So that's why it's illegal. It's because everyone doesn't have access to the information. Well, 45 days is a lifetime in the stock market. 2 days isn't. 1 day isn't. The 4 hours wouldn't be. If I bought stock, like let's say me, I just know I have access to everything. I work in Congress. I have access to everything. I know the market. I know how it's going to move. I'm Nancy Pelosi. I have Nancy Pelosi, and I'm going to make money. If I had to disclose all of my ventures within a day, 48 hours, and you're a savvy investor, you would watch my portfolio, my disclosures in real time, and you would be able to understand what I'm doing and do those things too, if you wanted to. And because of that, it wouldn't really be insider information because you would have access to the same moves that I do because I would be making the moves and you could watch the moves, and therefore it's not really hidden because you can see what I'm doing. Not necessarily the information, but the thing that we're trying to protect against, which is manipulating the market or hiding my moves in the market so that other people don't see them. That's kind of what we're protecting against. So those are kind of two separate solutions that each get at the problem in a different way. One is don't allow Congress to buy individual stocks just at all once they enter Congress. And the other one is just force them to disclose everything. And if they don't, send them to jail or at least hit them with a very, very hefty fine. None of this $200 nonsense. I'm talking $50,000, $100,000. The price of the stock, whatever it made over the course of time from when they failed to disclose to when they are found out. So whatever the course is or whatever is when they sold, whatever the maximum of that amount of money is that they could have made, force them to pay that plus some hefty fine or send them to jail. Either way, I don't care. But those are my two solutions. And I think this is a good bill. I think this is something that Americans want. I don't think that the that gross whiff of corruption in government is going to go away anytime soon. But stuff like this helps. It makes people trust government a little bit more when they think that they're not getting robbed. When you look at Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolio and you see this growth, let me find it where it is. Okay, here. Just like this, where it just goes up and 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 up, in this never-ending line that just goes up and up and up. When you see that, you go, my 401k doesn't look like that. My 401k goes like this. It goes up, and then it goes down a little bit, and then it goes down, and then it goes up. It goes up, but it doesn't go up like this. It doesn't go up 54% in a year like this every year, like Nancy Pelosi. That's just ridiculous. So when you see that, you just get that grimace on your face. You know, your nose does that thing. You kind of curl up. You go, I don't like this. I don't like that at all. She's cheating, and I don't like that. Government's corrupt, and you do that spitting thing. Yeah, the government. I don't like it, and I get that. I understand that. I get that. I'm not saying it's wrong. What I'm saying is this is how we fight it. This is how we combat it. It's bills like Josh Hawley's, which bring more transparency or more restrictions on members of Congress. Because this idea of rules for me and not for thee is ridiculous. And in their case, it'd be rules for thee, not for me, right? Congress gets to sit above us. I go to do insider trading. Me and Martha Stewart go to jail. They do insider trading. They're like, here's my $200. I'm going to go bank that $1 million I just made because I invested in the steel company. Ridiculous. And I think everyone can agree that that's a bad thing. So anyway, this would also be a great chance for some bipartisan effort because Republicans do this. I just read off the names of Republicans, and obviously Democrats do it. So it's everybody in Congress doing this. And anyone who I think is really on the up and up is going to be for this kind of stuff. Anyway, oh my gosh. Let's move on here. Okay, so just a great chance for some bipartisan work. All right, on to topic 2. Oh, snap. RFK is taking away your soda. So I want to start here before we get into it too deep. Okay, I tried, by the way, sorry, smacking the mic. If the audio on this is messed up, listen, I'm trying, okay? I lowered it. I know some people were saying the audio was really loud on the internet video, so I lowered it down quite a bit. We'll see how it sounds. Anyway, hopefully it's not too loud.
We're spending $405 million a day on SNAP, and about 10% is going to sugary drinks. And if you add candies to that, it's about 13 to 17%. We all believe in free choice. We live in a democracy. People can make their own choice about what they're going to buy and what they're not going to buy. If you want to buy a sugary soda, you ought to be able to do that. But the U.S. taxpayer should not pay for it. The U.S. taxpayer should not be paying to feed kids foods, the poorest kids in our country, with foods that are going to give them diabetes. We're spending $400.
Okay, so that was RFK. And for those of you who don't know, I'm sure most of you know who that is. I have mixed feelings about RFK, okay? Because he's knowledgeable. He's very knowledgeable about certain things, and he's very passionate about this idea that we're poisoning people with the things that we put in our food and the things that we put in our drugs. And I agree with him. A lot of the things that go on with the FDA are criminal, and we shouldn't be allowing certain things to go in our food. I like the fact that it's taken so long to get all these little plastic food coloring nonsense out of food. And they're saying, yeah, well, there's no evidence that it's giving you cancer today. And I say, all right, let's go on. RFK's got a point. They don't use this in other countries. Why do you need to do it here? Put plastic in our food. It's ridiculous. Anyway, so I kind of agree with that. But then you go on the vaccine stuff, and I'm kind of like, I understand that. I didn't get the COVID vaccine, and I talked about this, and we went over the COVID vaccine quite a lot. He says some stuff about vaccines I don't think is accurate, and he says some stuff, and I'm like, yeah, that's common sense to me. And anyway, so it's a mixed bag with RFK. This is an interesting topic, though, because what he's saying in that clip, in case you didn't understand it, he basically is saying that as the Director of Health and Human Services, he oversees SNAP, or he oversees like this idea that I guess has expanded into Health and Human Services about SNAP, where 40 million people in this country receive some sort of food assistance, which is what SNAP is. SNAP is basically government is giving you money so you can spend it on food. That's kind of, just in a general sense, that's what it is. And he's saying, why are we allowing people to use government taxpayer money to buy junk food that is making them unhealthy, and then they have to utilize government assistance for their health care? And he's got a great point. It is a great point. It's an interesting debate, but it is a good point. You can't argue with the point. That is to say that the government has an expressed interest in not funding their own demise, which means that they don't have any interest in making people unhealthy, because unhealthy people then utilize the government healthcare system, which then costs the government more money. So they're giving money over here to then spend money over here. It doesn't make any sense. So 40 million people use this benefit. And basically what RFK is saying is that he wants to outlaw or ban certain things from being on the government-assisted food program known as SNAP. So he's talking about sodas here in general, but he's talking about sugary candies. He's talking about junk food, basically. And he's going to start with sodas. And this is an important thing. Can the government, this is the question really, can government actually make people healthy? That is the debate. That's the question at hand. And actually in the comments from last week, people were saying something about this. And if I was thinking ahead, I would have actually pulled those comments up because I'm remembering this in real time. But basically they were saying the certain thing that RFK is saying, like, hey, what if there was a government-run store that only sold healthy foods, for example? Or what if a government limited the certain foods you could could buy. And I go back and forth on this topic because the underlying question, can government make people healthy? I think the answer is no. I don't think the government can actually do that. I think that there's an individual choice, and the government can't really influence unhealthy people to be healthy. Look back historically at the government ideas of health, first of all. Do you remember the food pyramid? Actually, you know what? As I say this, we need to see a picture of the food pyramid. Let me see this. Old school. I'm going to type in old school food pyramid. This is, okay. All right. So this is a great, I don't know why I didn't think about this in general. Oh my gosh. Would you leave me alone? Blah, blah, blah. Just show me the pyramid, people. There we go. Okay. This is exactly what I was thinking. Okay. Take a look at this real quick. Okay, so this is the do we remember this old school food pyramid? So what does it say? It says, all right, up here at the top, fats, oils, sweets. Don't use those sparingly. This is how many servings you're supposed to get. 1992, in a day, they would say, hey, this is about what you need in a day. Milk, yogurt, cheese, 2 to 3 servings. Okay, fine. Meat, poultry, fish, beans, eggs, nuts, 2 to 3 servings. Vegetables, 3 to 5. Fruits, 2 to 4. Hey, that's great. Okay. 6 to 11 servings of bread, cereal, rice, pasta. Talk about a nonsense, terrible, terrible advice to promote obesity. What in this pyramid is, it's not exactly upside down, but it's mostly upside down. Like these 4 things in the middle, right? You got your milk and yogurt and cheese. Okay, fine, whatever. Meat, nuts. This stuff right here in the middle is good stuff. I really think anything in this group is fine. You can eat fruits, you can eat veggies, you can eat milk, yogurt, cheese. I'm not a person who's opposed to milk. I know some people tell you dairy is not good for you. I don't agree with that. I actually think it's fine. Meat, poultry, which I would consider meat. I don't know why it's its own separate thing. Meat, poultry, fish, dry beans, eggs, nuts. I think you eat as much of this as you want. It's great. That's good stuff. This stuff at the bottom is more dangerous than fats and oils. In my opinion, fat is fine. Fat is fine for you to eat, by the way. But the government was telling you to eat 6 to 11 servings of bread, cereal, rice, and pasta. Let me tell you something right now. Bread, cereal, and pasta is some of the worst stuff you can put in your body. That's just a fact. There's nothing. Carbs aren't necessarily your enemy. If you're an elite athlete or you burn a lot of calories a day or you work really hard, you work out a lot, carbs are not your enemy. You need carbs. But carbs for the general populace who don't work out hard or don't exercise all the time, these are the worst things you can put in your body. You would be better off eating nothing but meat and fruit and be totally fine and never touching these breads again. And they were saying that this is the most important thing that you could do. So can the government make people healthy? No, the government can't make people healthy because the government doesn't know what healthy is. RFK might be one of the healthiest people in government. I know that might seem shocking to people, but have you ever seen the man? I don't know how old he is, late 60s, maybe 70, I don't know. He's ripped. He's on TRT, and he's getting there bench pressing 225 for reps. I mean, the guy is a beast. He gets health, and he understands this. But do I think on the whole that the government is going to make people healthy? No, because they will recommend things like 6 to 11 servings of bread a day, and they don't know what they're talking about. I look at people, a lot of doctors, by the way, are not trained in nutrition. They say nonsense like this, the same kind of stuff that the government was saying in 1992 when they went to med school because they don't know better and they don't stay up to date on it. So I don't think that the government is going to make healthy. I don't think banning soda did anything in New York, for example. New York City banned sodas. Is New York healthier now? Can they point to any data point that says banning sodas over whatever was 32 ounces in New York did anything? No. It makes them feel good because they say, hey, we're doing it. We're fighting the big guy. I think the government can do this. I don't think it's wrong. I don't think that saying taxpayers shouldn't fund junk food is a bad thing. I think that's fine. But is it going to make people healthier? I don't know. I'm not sold that it will. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying I don't think it will. And also, it reminds me of this personal anecdote. It reminds me of a guy I saw one time who was at the store in front of me in line. And he was buying whatever he was buying, nonsense. He was buying food. And I don't remember what it was. But I remember he was buying food and he had this bag and basically it ran through the thing. and he's going to pay, and he's getting out his, I think he had an EBT card or an assistance thing, whatever, and he pays for it with this. And then he stops and he says, oh, and can you give me 2 packs of cigarettes from behind the counter? And they give him 2 packs of cigarettes, and he pulls out money and he hands the guy cash, and he paid for his cigarettes, and he left. And I remember thinking, isn't that kind of strange? Like, that guy's got money, taxpayer money, in his pocket. He's paying for food, which is fine. I don't want anyone to go hungry. I think there's an argument to be made that, hey, people da-da-da-da. But then he pulls out money and he buys, whatever, $20 worth of cigarettes. And I'm sitting there going, isn't that weird? Isn't that kind of weird? Like, he's got money. He has cash. He's got cash in his pocket to pay for things. But he's buying cigarettes, and yet we're paying for all his groceries. And I don't know. I felt weird about it, even at the time as a big progressive. And so I think that there's a weird thing that goes on where when we're talking about assistance and our need to restructure assistance and our need to figure things out. I don't think that poor people should be deprived of things that they want or need. Want may be a little bit broad, but things like soda. Are we really going to say poor people don't deserve soda? Do you care? Soda is it's cheaper than a bottle of water most of the time to buy a bottle of soda. Is that really the thing that is breaking the country? No, I don't think so. And I don't think it's going to make them healthier. I don't think they're going to eat healthier. That guy who was on EBT, imagine that we said he could only buy fruit and meat with his EBT card, and then he reaches in his pocket for cash to buy cigarettes. So there's a lot of arguments to be made here in a lot of different directions. But I know that states, I think we're up to 12 states. Arkansas, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Nebraska, West Virginia, Florida, Colorado, Louisiana, Oklahoma, and Texas. Each of these states have made some laws already tightening, starting next year, what you can and can't buy with government assistance. Again, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying, what's the goal? Is the goal to punish poor people? That's not a good goal. Is the goal to try and make poor people healthier? I don't think that's going to achieve the goal. So you say, what is the goal? And ask yourself what the goal is. I think it's a good thing overall that the government can restrict what they want. They can do what they want. It's our money. Okay, so if we or people we elect think this is a good idea, it's fine. We have the power to say what we can and can't spend money on as a government. Just ask yourself what the goal is. And if your goal is to make people healthier, I just think that that's not going to happen. I understand it's a good goal. I think it's a fine goal. I just don't think that the way that we're going to do it is by saying poor people can't buy soda. I don't think that's it. It also like I said, it brings me to government assistance, whether or not it's a good thing. And I've been telling people for a long time, I think what we should do with all government assistance is get rid of it. We get rid of it all. There's something like 30-something programs, 36, I want to say, 36 different government programs that give people money every month, from housing assistance to SNAP to whatever, vouchers, to all these different things. There's all these programs that give people money. We get rid of all of those programs and just give people a check a month. Now, that would be better than the little SNAP things that we can use to buy this and buy that, or the rent form that we got to do this, or Section 8 housing that we got to do this, all that bureaucracy. Get rid of it. And we just give people a check. And I think that would be better than paying all of these people to administer all of this stuff, and we check up on what this person's spending money on. Are they doing this and are they doing that? No, we figure out a system. We get rid of all that stuff, and we just give people a check, and then they say, sink or swim. That's what you get. Whatever that monetary amount is going to be, that would be a better solution, some sort of basic income for the low-income people. Again, I know, as talking to all my Republicans, all my conservatives out there, don't like the idea of government assistance. I don't like the idea of government assistance. I think that we're obviously not going to let people starve and die in the streets. We have all these programs already, is what I'm saying. They already exist. Dismantle all those programs and just send people a check. If we want to change it later, we would change it later, but we should dismantle those programs. As I said, SNAP shouldn't exist. We should just give people money. And I understand they're going to spend it on shit that they shouldn't buy. I get that. I understand. I get the argument that they're going to take that money and they're going to go buy their heroin. Okay, all right, we're not going to stop it. That's fine. I don't think that's a good thing, but I'm not interested in having a program that say, oh, well, you can, one of these 36 programs is for diapers, and one of these 36 programs is so you can buy eggs, and one of these 36 programs is so you can pay rent, da-da-da-da-da. People are going to make terrible choices. We can't stop them, and I don't think it's our job as a government to nanny everybody. It's not our job. It really isn't. And I want to help people. I want to say we should support poor people. We should help people in need. I think that that's good. But We don't need 36 programs to do it. We just need to give them money and let them sink or swim. Anyway, I want to end it there for the week. As always, people, questions, comments, concerns, leave them in the comments below. Also, one thing. Let me just say one thing real quick. I went and saw yesterday. By the way, I'm recording this on the 6th of August. So it won't go out for 2 days, but I'm going to be busy the next couple of days, so I had to record this early. So if I missed some giant event, it's not because I wasn't paying attention. It's because I was recording this on Wednesday at night. So Thursday, who knows? Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow? It could be crazy. Anyway, but the one thing I want to say is I went yesterday and saw The Naked Gun. If you are a fan of those original movies or silly comedies in general, you should go see it. I thought it was great. One of the funnier movies I've seen in theaters in a long time, and very much in the spirit of the original. So if you're a fan of the original Naked Gun movies, go see it. It was a lot of fun. Liam Neeson did a great job, and I'm going to have a review of it up later. But just real quick, if you haven't seen it, you should go see it if you like those kind of movies, which are stupid, silly comedies. I thought it was great. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there for the week. As always, hope you guys have a wonderful, safe, healthy week. Questions, comments, concerns in the comments down below, and I will catch you next Friday.